Good afternoon and welcome, everybody. This would be the Jeff Cameron Show, 93.3 Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV on Libations Friday. Not loosey-goosey. For the purposes of transparency, Tom and I had to get together before the scheduled start time. Wanted new content. He had a scheduled day, so did I. So we got together and said, hey, this is what we're going to do. Obviously got to react to the game last night, which unfortunately saw Miami win in what was a thrilling game, a lot of fun to watch. And, you know, Tom, I'll bring you in right out the gates because that was not Miami's best effort, yet they still won, and that's troubling and frustrating. Made for an entertaining game, maybe even one that would have gone down in the annals as another pseudo Mario Cristobal. What are you doing? How in the world did you lose that game? You've got the better team conversation for Canes fans, but instead they are rugged and they are tough. And in the end, quarterback finally had to make some plays, and he did. And he finally made some plays. They didn't need him for much of it, but they needed him at the end.
Yeah, and I think there were a couple of throws in the first half, too, that settled him down. He looked awful out the gate. The first,
yes, he did.
You know, for the bulk of the first 2 or 3 drives, he was pretty bad. There was a good third down throw and an in-breaking route from the left as they're approaching the red zone. That was a sign of health for him because otherwise his arm looked dead. It looked like he was trying to anticipate to throw to a spot.
Guide the ball, Tom. I thought he tried to guide the ball for a while there.
Yeah, there was he's trying to land it on a spot on a map to Tony early in the game when it's a walk-in touchdown. If you bother to just hit him, it reminded me so much of an early miss against us in the first half where, I mean, it's a blown coverage. The safety's squatting down. You're like, oh, God, that's not what we do here. And there were several other shots early in that game, first 3 quarters, where Ole Miss blows a coverage and Beck can't take advantage of it either by just outright missing guys or underthrowing the hell out of them. There was one pass interference that Ole Miss got away with that was pretty ridiculous, but it was a terrible underthrow. So there are a lot of those moments, but you're right. Down the stretch, he makes a couple of good throws. It's just that they did what you scouted about the Texas A&M game. They fell in love with tricky plays, and it cost them 10 points over the course of the first 3 quarters. It all started in that first drive with Kadarius Toney, and they bring him in a Wildcat when they are absolutely eviscerating Ole Miss in that moment down in the trenches, and they're just moving the ball at will. There are easy reads for Beck to make those underneath throws, and that short circuits a drive. And then there's another one later with was it the flea flicker? There was a play in the second half where you go, guys, you are surging them up the middle. What are you doing? Between that and the penalties, it gave us hope, but Miami was able to make those 2 key drives in the fourth quarter, down 2 and then down 3 respectively.
So, you're referencing something I talked about this week and I've talked about before with them. If I were Miami at the end of this run, whether it ends with a national championship or not, and obviously Miami is all the way back, they're playing for the national title, I would tell you that there's no chance in hell that I would remain patient with Shannon Dawson. He would no longer be my OC. If I was Mario, I'd bring in another OC. Or I'd have a long conversation with Shannon about, you see what I have built here. You understand the machine that I have built here. And for all of us on a regular basis, and you might get tired of me saying this, and I say it a lot, that's what it looks like when you have a dominant offensive line. And what I mean is, despite the fact that they routinely like to shoot themselves in the foot and get bored with their offensive line dominance and decide to do something stupid out of nowhere, when they have to have it, what do? 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, 3rd and 2, crucial moments of the game. What do? They line up and run the ball in heavy personnel, and they don't care that you know they're going to do it. You're not going to be able to stop it. You get a guy who runs hard like Fletcher, and you just run behind those behemoths, and you're going to get 3 or 4 yards. Oftentimes a hell of a lot more than that. You watched Ole Miss walk up the safeties in the second half, knowing they were getting bludgeoned. You cannot continue to allow that to happen, and yet they still couldn't stop short yardage plays for the most part, even when Miami was obviously telling them they were going to run it on 3rd down.
Yeah, I wonder. So I was watching the Skycast, which they got right on ESPNU, was the sounds of the game, it's just bliss, that particular broadcast and how they presented. I wonder, did Fletcher get hurt on that one run up the middle in which he just gets stymied? He's almost up the butt of the blocker right in front of him, and he falls right on his butt. It's a loss of 1. 6 comes into the game and he ends up being Miami's running back for the bulk of it afterwards. If he got hurt, which maybe the broadcast spoke about it because the traditional play-by-play would address such a thing, that would have implications for this next game. But I didn't see him come back in after that moment, which I believe was fourth quarter drive when they were down 2.
Yeah, he came back in briefly. I know what you're talking about. I don't know. There was something going on there. They actually had a couple players who I thought opted, and this is not the term that I usually use when I talk about guys turning it down. He doesn't turn it down. He's a tough guy. But kind of opted towards the sidelines on key moments. Afterwards, Mario Cristobal said the team had the flu, that many of the players had, or illness. I don't know if he specifically said the flu, but he said this was a tough week for them. Now, to his credit, he wasn't prattling on and making excuses for why it was close. He just said, hey, I'm really proud of these guys. It's been a tough week for us. We had a lot of guys go down with sickness. We fought through it. We knew what was at stake here. I think there was a lot of that, Tom, because you saw guys. It wasn't just him. A few other guys came off the field in moments where I thought that's you. Now's not when you opt out here. This is kind of a key moment.
Is it everybody in their secondary? Did they lose functions with their hands and their arms because of the flu?
No, that's why they're defensive backs.
Yeah, I know it. That game could have been terribly out of hand. What it did allow for in terms of entertainment value, if you didn't have a dog in the fight and you weren't rooting against Miami as we were so vehemently, it gave Chambliss a chance to show you the stuff that he put together against Georgia. And that drive, when Miami answers and they go up 24-19, that drive is like, if there was another 40 seconds on the clock at the end of the game, instead of 18 seconds, there's 58 seconds. I think everybody expects Ole Miss to score on that drive. He had reached that zone, and some of the throws he made on the last drive with just 18 seconds to go over the middle of the field. Breathtaking. I hope that kid gets another year. I hope he does.
Or that he continues to soar and somebody picks him and he ends up having a nice career in the NFL. Yeah, I suppose. I mean, because I don't know what his ceiling is. You know, I'm done projecting that kid because all year long I kind of thought, oh, that's a good story. It's a really good story. He's turned into a nice college football player. Well, buddy, I mean, he may be more than that. He may be a lot more than that.
Yeah, and I know that on that final drive that they scored the touchdown, not the ultimate one that ended the game, they did have the benefit of one pass interference call. Miami, man, Ole Miss was not called for a lot, and I could understand why there was some moments where you go, really? So Miami's the only one guilty of some things here. The face mask was a key call in that fourth quarter that went Miami's way, which was the correct call. It's a back shoulder throw, and the receiver gets tugged on the face mask. But, I mean, some of those reads he made, let's call it his last 9 throws. Probably 4 or 5 of them are ones where you go, holy crap. Just like the throw he made to beat Georgia to ice the game on that third down. That's
right.
Perfectly in stride. I mean, those there was a sideline throw last night that was perfect, too, in that 18 seconds where I don't think the kid comes down with it, but very impressive. They were allowed to hang around by Miami. Now, the penalties thing is largely who they are. They played a clean game, which was an outlier against Ohio State. That's usually who they are. The trick play thing also has risen up and gotten them from time to time. But what stinks is, you know, that the odds are that they won't play that lousy of a game again when they face the winner of tonight's game. And that's where you just hope that the winner of tonight's game plays their best when it's for all the marbles a couple Mondays from now.
Yeah, 2 things on that. Both Indiana and Oregon are capable of beating Miami, and that's a full stop. They don't have to do weird things. They could just be better. I actually think they might just be better. So we'll see. That's a great game. It is going to be, no matter who wins the game, Oregon or Indiana tonight, that is going to be a physical game in the next game. Like they both play a level of ruggedness that I admire. All 3 teams that remain. You have Miami that moves on. We have the game tonight between Oregon and Indiana. All 3 teams do what? They beat you up. It's the line of scrimmage, man. That is not the Oregon team of yesteryear. That is not what we saw them be in the past, and that is certainly not what Indiana is. And we just got them done watching them with a bloodbath against Alabama.
So the way that Indiana beat Oregon earlier this season, I think the better bet is to go with the number 1 team here, specific for the matchup because of how Indiana will attack Miami's run and how they will challenge Carson Beck to make throws. which tells me that Oregon's going to win tonight, and we're going to go, oh God, all right, here we. Not that Oregon, you're right, they're equipped for the fight, but specific if you're talking about styles make fights. When Miami's on the field, that Indiana defense, I think, is a perfect matchup. If you're looking for a champion and a dragon slayer, which we all are now in the championship game.
I just like the stories. I mean, if Indiana can win a national championship, it's a crazy story. We were just talking about Trinidad Chambliss. That's a great story. He did have those moments in the fourth quarter, like we talked about. I don't know what he is as a pro. I'm just now intrigued. I know he's only 6 feet tall, and that's what they list him at. And there was a reason that he had to go to Ferris State. And I'm not, there are people who come out of nowhere all the time, but those throws are NFL throws that we get excited about.
Oh, could you imagine him in Gus's system, Jeff? $7 million. Let's make it happen.
Oh, how I wish. But alas, I'll just say that what's frustrating is Florida State had a massive head start, and now Miami is playing for a national championship. And it's not a moral shame, but shame on you. Shame on you, Mike Norvell. Shame on you, administration. Shame on you, Florida State football. You have been lapped by your arch rival. You're not in the same stratosphere. We saw that this past year. I know everybody wants to point to that score, and they'll continue. Come on, man. Come on, buddy. We were all at that game. We know damn well what we saw out there. Miami was bored at the end of 3 quarters. They were beating them up so bad. And then weird things happen and whatever. Come on. We're not even in this. Now, look. The oddity is that I feel like you're a lot closer to Ole Miss than you are Miami. And I think you've said that before. And you're a lot closer to them than you are Indiana.
You are, yes. Not this year, unless something magical happens over the one magical week in the portal. Let's like one magical week in Charlotte, North Carolina, or Durham, wherever the hell the basketball tournament is. Not this year, but you can be a representative, an at-large team in the playoff by getting significantly better, but not fundamentally, oh my God, this has to be totally overhauled. You could get there, but to be on the level of these last 3 teams standing in the trenches, philosophically,
all of it.
Success rate in the portal, I don't even know where to begin. Development, recruiting, all of it. It all has to change. Herb Hand has given me a little bit of hope here because of what he was able to do with last year's group and some of the names that he's gotten so far for this year's offensive line. I think there's potential there, at least in the interior of the offensive line, to be pretty good again. But, this whole development thing would be really, really important, which is why we're all shaking our head today. And we go, you could get back to a place where you're 15th in the country in early November and you're competing for an at-large bid. But there's a little bit of a separation here when it comes to getting into the playoff and then what it takes to make it this far.
And on that note, we'll come back and talk about the fact that Florida State cornerback Shamar Arnaud, very talented young man who was thrust into action this year, very early in his college career, has become, if I could speak, the latest to enter the transfer portal. Great. Chef Cameron Show 93.3 Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV. We mentioned it before we went to break. Not a loosey-goosey portion of the program, not a Libations Friday festive thing to have to bring up, but it's also not a dire, solemn thing. I'm just noting yet another player of note is in the portal. That is true freshman corner Shamar Arnaud. Tom, this one's complicated. He appeared in 11 games in a freshman season, and you really don't do that unless you got something to you. So I think we have to say that from a talent standpoint, this is a loss you would not like. You're not happy about losing the clay that you're trying to mold here with this. That's where I want to start. And I want people to listen carefully because I don't want to say certain things. But what I'll tell you is that, when you get that kind of clay, it's easy when that clay has a lot of malleability and is willing to work with you and acts as a leader. That's great. Sometimes you get that, Clay, and it's a work in progress. And so there's a little of that. And I think that's kind of how this whole thing landed. I also think it's just real easy right now. It's just, you've got a mess on your hands. This thing, every day we come in, it's playing out in the way that a lot of people feared, certainly in the way that I described before the portal opened. We're having a hard time. We're having a hard time. It reminds me, I'm thinking, what movie am I thinking of? Royal Tenenbaums. In the hallway, Royal, you're having a nervous breakdown. And then he says, "It's been a hard year, Dad," or whatever he says. He goes, I know. We're the ones going, it's been a hard year, Tom. We're having a hard time. We're over here just having a hard time. Ben Stiller is us. It's been a tough year. We're having a hard time, Dad.
There's just a lot of things. The mistakes we made are unfortunate.
Yeah.
There have been issues. Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're correct to say that the scuttle around Shamar Arnaud has always been, even since they flipped him from Auburn. So this isn't something that changed magically because he's in the
right. Sometimes people come here and we screw it all up.
Yeah.
This isn't that. Yeah.
Incredibly talented, maturity concerns. And that has still been the case. Doesn't mean that he can't work with the young man and get him on the field and can have him continue to be a player for you, because Lord knows we've got some other guys with maturity concerns in the defensive backfield that suck when they're out there and we're paid a lot of money or were highly rated when we got them. So that is also one of those concerns and one of those issues. He jumped how many young players in order to get on the field? 3, 4, 5?
Yeah. Right off the bat. Yeah, right off the bat.
Here's the kicker. This would be such a slap to the face or brass knuckles to the cheek if I'm a Charles Lester or Kai Bates, who's now at, I think, Wisconsin is where he went.
Yeah.
A lot of
I lose track of them once they leave here, Tom.
Yeah, a lot of our guys went to Wisconsin. He was being worked at safety and cultivated to be an option at safety because he just has that heavier frame, Arnaud. And when you have injury problems this year, they flip him back to corner and put him on the field right away instead of dudes who have been here for a year or 2 or 3. So full credit to him to find his way and force his way onto the field. But this is also a situation where Florida State, depending upon the player, I don't know why they care to do this so aggressively, but you go to their football roster on Seminoles.com.
Well, they got him off the roster, buddy.
Why does it matter? Like, Gunnar Hansen is still on that page. He can't come back next year. What does it matter if last year's team has a guy removed or a guy that stays on the football roster?
I think they're sending signals.
They're choosing to do that. Absolutely. Another example, I'll tell you, as of Thursday night into Friday morning, despite the fact that LaWayne McCoy and the Desir brothers have the same representation, LaWayne McCoy's name is not on Florida State's roster, but the Desir's name are on Florida State's roster. So they definitely send you signals about how much they care to fight for a player to remain with Florida State, even if they've announced intentions to the portal. Randy Pittman was on Florida State's roster page for quite a while, even after he announced his intentions last month. So Shamar was like gone in a tenth of a second in terms of.
Yeah. And Tom, I don't think, by the way, so just for clarity purposes, I absolutely think that that's what that is. I don't think there's any question. I don't think there's ambiguity here. I think there are guys who they have a falling out with. They don't like, whatever. They've come to an impasse. The player and the organization are not going to see this through. We're not going to work on it. We're not negotiating. There's nothing to talk about here. You got to go and you want to go or whatever it might be, then peace out. And then there are others where they're like, oh, no, let's not be so rash. Let's have the conversation, everybody. This can be worked through. And Yeah, I think that's usually a heck of a tell, in that there are guys who say they're going to enter the portal, and within an hour, their name is not on the roster.
Right. Yes. Which is why that's how we reported yesterday. 24/7 had it earlier that the report was he was going to intend to enter the portal. But then you flip over to Seminoles.com and it tells you it's not some grad assistant who's in his feelings that removes guys or keeps guys. It is an order that comes down in order to say, yeah, take them off the team page or not. So that is always a good indicator. Just a nice little PSA for fans to be on the lookout for things. I'm not saying refresh Florida State's official roster page all day long to see about developments. But if you hear some scuttle about a player intending to enter the portal, or you see a graphic put out by On3 or wherever that somebody intends to enter the portal, just flip on over to Seminoles.com, and that'll give you an indication of how collaborative these talks have been, or how toxic these talks have been as it relates to their next contract or their next rev share deal.
Yeah, and somebody might today say, oh, well, let me go look at what this kid did. And if you just go look at his numbers, that won't tell you the story. I mean, it's the story is that a 6'2", 185-pound, very good athlete who found his way onto the football field his true freshman year is another who was a good get, is another player that is on down the road, and you lose out on whatever potential that is. Now, look, not every guy that goes into the portal is worth saving. Not every guy that goes into the portal is Florida State's fault. Some of it's just this system. But, man, I think it is obviously at this point a reflection of just how much trouble, let's put it that way, they're having. If you look at when they went through the process to try to bring in coaches, some of these coaches may work out, but come on, man. I think we saw what went on there. They weren't – these coaching hires are not inspiring. Then from there, they are having a real hard time with player acquisition. I mean, let's just talk about it. They're having a very hard time with player acquisition. I mean, we are now 7 days into this, right? Are we in the seventh day? I think it is. 7 days into this, and they can't get the players they want here to come here. They can't get guys on campus to try to convince. And many of them that they do were not their first choice. They wanted this other player. They couldn't get a yes out of that player. They couldn't get the player on campus, so they had to pivot to this next guy. Doesn't mean those guys that they got yeses from won't work out. I'm not, throwing a blanket over all these guys and saying a lot of them are bums. What I'm saying is that they wanted other players. They couldn't get them. They had to pivot to these guys in many cases. Why do I bring that up? Not to continue to hammer a point home that depresses people, because it does, and not to rile up anybody. We're having frank discussions about a program we love and where they're at right now. That's all it is. And the empirical evidence tells you they're just having a real hard time with all of it. With the wooing of coaches for a dead man walking, they didn't want Gus back. It was obvious. Gus didn't want to come back. They're stuck with each other. There's so many stories like this where you just go, what is going on? You look at the player situation. I mean, sure, it's true to throw out the caveat, well, everybody's dealing with the portal these days. Come on, man. Look around at this. I mean, you might as well have 40 effing people in the portal at this point off this roster. And many of them were guys that you brought in, and at a time you were very excited to bring them in. They're not all bad kids. This is just a bad situation.
I think with the current roster, that has to do with the on-field stuff and the buy-in, and it's obvious. If you're going to lose a lot, if you're going to be down, out, if you're going to be unclear about what your intentions are. I mean, consider also that a lot of these players didn't know if Mike Norvell was going to be their head coach for the last month of the season, because Mike Norvell's boss released a statement that said they're going to review him at the end of the year after Stanford. So they're playing for a few weeks after that. I mean, shoot, they get on the plane home from Stanford, and a lot of the players are rightfully hearing before the statement comes out that might be the last game that Mike ever coached for them. And then once they got clarity, once they got clarity, there wasn't clarity at all. The clarity was, well, maybe, kind of, sort of, we'll see. End of the year, we'll know. So, I mean, that's been their experience. So that's one thing. And that's going to be its own animal and the price you pay for losing, and then also not choosing a direction with any, conviction is going to be that you're going to lose some players that you currently had on the roster last year. The reputation also ain't hot, not just because of the program and what the football product has been, but in the community right now of agencies and guys bringing people to campus, the reputation ain't hot. It's not worth getting into the particulars about that. You're just going to have to take a word on it that it's not great right now. And winning can help deodorize a lot of this stuff, but they don't get on the field for another 7 months, and this portal window only goes for another week. It ain't so hot right now. Hopefully when we revisit the portal window next year at this time, their reputation is a lot better, but it's less than ideal in this moment amongst guys coming in from other situations. Again, our own problems on the field and the administration affects the roster that was here this past year. So that kind of was a sunk cost of bringing him back. But when you could still create an excellent first impression if you can get somebody on campus, and it's been más o menos there. Hadn't been great.
They haven't been able to get who they want on campus. The latest example is the Pitt linebacker. They have pissed off quite a few people that they ended up getting on campus. I don't know what that charade was in bringing in the UNLV quarterback, Calandria, and why you brought him in when you knew what his asking price was before he got here. So you offended them. I don't care about offending them, but you didn't need to do it. It's self-inflicted. There was never a reason. And I mean, nobody was shocked yesterday when Lagway signed with Baylor. Dad probably got him in, whatever. But I mean, here's the thing. I mean, go look that up. But he was not going to be a Florida State quarterback, and people are going to be, oh, now Jeff, he was excited. These kids all say the right thing. A lot of them, anyhow, say the right thing. Their exit interviews with the press, if they stop and talk, are always, oh, couldn't have gone any better. It was awesome. Doesn't mean anything. They're just playing the game. You didn't need to bring Lagway in here. He's not a fit for what you're trying to do. Hasn't played good football in over a year. No, there was no reason for it. The reputation's bad for the people that come and then go elsewhere, is what you're referencing, where the agents talk about that. But you know where else it's bad? It was bad before this process started.
Right.
The agents weren't steering kids here because there wasn't a belief in what NIL is. And many other schools get a head start because of it. This was my warning over and over and over again about the dangers of the pervasive attitude that had been stated publicly by the athletic director about where NIL was going, how it was going to be regulated, what was and what was not possible within that realm. Go look at Ross Dellinger's piece on how LSU's doing it. I mean, go find anywhere you want. Look at the way that these third-party entities are created to run this NIL away from the university and how they funnel funds through it. I mean, Florida State did not have a forward-thinking, aggressive attitude towards NIL in the era that we're in, which is the Wild West and lawless and all the things that we talk about on a regular basis, but instead thought that regulations and proper enforcement was coming. It was never coming.
Yeah, I would say just on the Florida State side, a little bit lower in the chain of command, down to the head coach and the coaching staff. You could have a scenario in theory of an agent community saying something like, man, I wish Florida State would do a little bit better. I love working with Mike. I love working with Florida State. They're fantastic to work with, but it's hard to buy into them right now because I don't know that he's going to be here in another year. It's not really the reputation right now of Florida State. It's a little bit more difficult and dodgy than that in this moment, which stinks because you try to bat 1,000 in every other way outside of the football field failures in order to be able to overcome some of those shortcomings and to procure players. I will say, as a quick aside, while the market is more regulated, than it has been, and it's more professionalized in the agent game, there are still a ton of clowns that are agents or representatives in this moment right now. Yeah. And even in the professional world, there are a ton of clowns that are agents at the MLB level, the NFL level.
But fewer, because they have to, by law, they have to be licensed. The ones in college do not.
Sure, they could be licensed and they can still be shaky customers.
There's shaky people everywhere. I got you. Some of them are, carnival barkers. I got you. But they have, like, most of them are lawyers.
For sure.
Or have a law degree.
With that understood, that the agent community is not beyond repute, still, we could do better to help ourselves with said community, because it's not large, and it's going to get smaller as time goes on. This is going to consolidate, and somebody's going to win, like Sexton won for coaches and Rosenhaus won for professional players for all that time. There's going to be a guy or two, or a firm or two or three that, man, eventually buttoning up these little details and having a strong reputation with the community doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to get a player cheaper, but it might mean that you're going to get a player to hop on a plane when they are supposed to hop on a plane and come down and visit you, and they're going to want to work with you. That's something that could have been tightened up over this last week. We'll see if they get better at it this second week in the portal. We'll see.
I don't see any indicators that this is moving in the direction that you're going to be excited about next week.
Right. No, what I'm saying, I'm not even talking about the results. I'm just talking about the relationships. When you suck, you need to be somebody that they're like, well, they're terrible, but I can't wait to go talk to him. It's my favorite conversation in this process. I love going to see that guy. Like, you kind of need that right now, coming off of 7 wins, of which 3 are real, 4 are real in the last 2 years.
This is a subject that's not going away. We're certainly forced to talk about it. They got the situation in Washington, and I want to talk about that again, and I'll do it here shortly, because that is a crazy situation that I begin to wonder, like, as we monitor these stories, and, you can't just stay omnipresent on Florida State's failures. And many people think I do that too much. Sorry, central theme is Florida State. But as a college football fan and somebody who wants to see this get a little bit more organized, let's just put it that way, I am interested to see these test cases. And the situation out at Washington, we said earlier in the week on the show, is a big one of those. And it's now kind of come to a conclusion, but I still think a lot of questions remain in the wake of it. And that's what I find fascinating. Like, the way that pros deal with the on-the-field, off-the-field business of professional football is very different than the way that kids deal with it in locker rooms and college football deal with it.
Oh, when you're talking about chemistry, that experiment ain't over. And it's not over in the rev share world either. However, the biggest winner yesterday was neither Ole Miss nor Miami before that game kicked off. It was that the teeth of offset language and buyout language won the day. Does that mean that it will forevermore and won't be challenged in the courts? I don't think so.
Oh, no, I think it means it will be challenged in the courts starting tomorrow. like that example was the biggest of the examples that we've seen so far with offset language.
Big win in that regard.
It's huge. We need that. Jeff Cameron Show, 93.3 Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV. In the National Football League, there's kind of a rule of thumb, and that is that business is business. And then when you're in the locker room, once you're in the fold, you're part of the family again, and nobody resents any of it. It's just what it is. It's part of it. If you have a Hall of Fame receiver or just an all-pro receiver who's been part of an organization and he wants a substantial raise, and the franchise is not willing to budge, and he holds out, the players go to practice, and they don't, from what I've been told by former NFL players and from what I've read from those who cover the league, it's just kind of understood that that's the price of business. Coaches a lot of times are the same way. Like, you don't anymore. You used to, but anymore you don't hear too many NFL coaches slander or besmirch a player that's not in the fold because they're in a contract dispute. They'll just say, well, we hope to get, Trevor back as soon as we can. We think he's a great player. We're better with him certainly than without him. And as soon as that can get done, that'd be great. They don't spend a lot of time, second guessing the players' efforts to get more money because they understand it's just part of it. And what we've watched play out this week in college football is absolutely fascinating. And it is a test once again. But again, it's not a one-to-one because college football is not like the NFL yet. It's not quite there yet, which we're kind of hoping it eventually gets there. What I'm referencing is Washington's Damon Williams Jr., who is now going back to Washington. He recanted, and well, I don't know about recanted, but he had second thoughts after his agent left him and said, yeah, maybe I'm going to go back. And he announced on Instagram last night that he would go back to Washington. So that was 48 hours in which he had announced his intent to transfer, days after signing a contract that was said to be worth around $4 million. $4 million for a college quarterback at Washington. Anyhow, that initial decision obviously sent shockwaves through college football to some extent, as much as you can be shocked anymore. And it served as a tipping point. And Washington said, oh, well, no, you're not doing that. We're going to go ahead and not sign the paperwork for you to go in the portal. We're not going to help you transition into the portal. And we're going to pursue by any means necessary the legal avenues we have to enforce the deal. My question to you is, will this be different for that team and those players? Because in college football, in pro football, they don't think anything of a holdout. They don't think anything of a player making bold threats. They don't think anything of the fact that a guy might use for leverage withholding their talent. This feels ugly, and it feels dirty, and it feels wrong. He wasn't doing what pro players do, Tom. This was nonsense. And the university called him on his nonsense. But if I'm a player and a teammate, man, I don't know, man. You're going to force him to go back to Washington? Yeah, why don't you just go F yourself? Like, I don't know how much I'm trying to block for that dude.
Well, I think the fact that it's January and you can put 8 months between you, 7 months and change between you, and this twist and turn is a good thing. You need the time, but it's that specific layer of his announcement coming down while teammates were attending a funeral for a former Washington soccer player that he had to acknowledge in his apology social media post, which means that more than it meant something behind the scenes, it meant something, and he was told, you soulless or you heartless or you tone deaf son of a gun. That to me is evidence that, yeah, there might be some words that happen when he arrives back in the locker room. Now, again, you have a chance to go through mat drills and spring ball and summer workouts and then fall camp. That's a whole lot of time for things to get sorted to where you could probably run through that tunnel and feel okay. But he's going to need a whole lot of that time in order to mend the fences because, yeah, just the timing of it all is really, really ugly beyond the idea of it being ugly that he just committed to his teammates. And God knows what he said on those text messages for the first 48 hours after he signed and returned to UW. I'm sure he reached out to celebrate with the receivers and the offensive line and the running backs and his friends on the team to say, I'm back for another year, guys, only for him to bolt another day later. So that one's going to be messy. I would agree with you. I don't think it's quite the same as a running back holding out because he finally gets a chance to make his money at the NFL level, and the only way that he can ensure that he gets $10 million guaranteed is if he sits out a few practices in training camp. This is different than that.
To your point, for those that don't know, when he announced his return to Washington, in that return, he said, and amongst other things, I'm fully committed to being back to what we're building here at Washington. But then underneath all of that, he said, Additionally, I apologize for the timing of these events coinciding with the celebration of life for Mia Hammett, a beloved member of our university community. I never intended to call attention away from such an important moment. I'm excited to reunite with my teammates and to lead the University of Washington to success in 2026. I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't buy that. I'm not saying he intentionally tried to draw attention away from a celebration of life service, but I will tell you, it was not on his mind.
Yeah, I think it's probably one of those deals that's worth addressing the team in a full team meeting setting, getting with the coach, and hey, why don't you come into the room 10 minutes late today, please? So when everybody's in the room, I can stand there and it's just players to players. Don't need any coaches in here. Let me address the room. I think that would be a wise first step if I was running that organization, because I don't know how you get everybody in a room together to hear him out unless you already have a pre-scheduled meeting that you can request assistance from your head coach, who is represented by the agent that represented you.
That dropped your ass.
You got dropped about 24 hours ago. I wonder now that he's coming back if that agent will return and therefore continue to collect commissions on his $4 million contract.
Yeah, probably, right? But
you would check with the head. You would check with Fish, like, hey, coach, you all right with the fact that all's well that ends well? I didn't mean for this to happen to you. All's well that ends well. We good here?
Golly, I don't. It's just so ugly. I don't want to be a reactionary, but buddy, I don't know, man. F that guy. That's tough. That he has put himself in a really bad way here. I don't know that anybody's laying it on the line for you. If I were Coach Fish, I'd have a problem. I would be really concerned. Now, he wants him back because he's a talent and they won games with him and the upside is great. You wouldn't pay him otherwise. I do think you can cross certain lines where you lose the team, where you lose belief, where people just don't want to play for you.
I think that might happen to a portion of the locker room, but once again, a lot of the kids
are mercenaries. But
yeah, I'm not generalizing to say all, but many of those kids at Washington just cut new deals or are in the middle of some kind of dispute that the public.
But they didn't do what he did, and they didn't do it in the way that he did.
Of course, there are degrees to all of this stuff. But what I'm saying is, I think in some ways, if there were not the timing of coinciding with a funeral, I think a player's mind can understand where a fellow player went, especially in college in this situation, because they haven't gone to the NFL yet. They don't know what professionalism looks like. So he's got peers that are 18, 19, 20 years old that don't understand the way that speaking to a former NFL vet understands about the money. Those guys don't even understand what it was like to be in college in this era. This is all novel and all new. So I think you might have a lot more of a forgiving, fertile ground there, but there are going to be some folks that, be it teammates, be it coaches, be it fans.
I don't. Yeah, he's not going to have the fan support. He's not
until he throws for 3 bills and 4 scores against an opponent that matters. Yes.
You beat Ohio State on the road and throw for 400 yards. You might win them back, but buddy, you better do that because honestly, no, man, look at the way the people respond to the players at Florida State who just dare tip their, put their foot in the portal.
Well, and even if they didn't put their foot in the portal, if they're doing the hokey pokey and the worm over the threshold of the portal and then moonwalking back and forth to either side.
So Daryl and Josh Farmer.
Yeah.
Look how quickly that turned. People are like, hey, man.
Yeah.
About done with your ass.
I'm watching it in real time, this week with the Desirs. It could have ended up one way. It could have ended up the other way. But in the midst of all of this particular situation, you watch the replies in the intel thread turn from "get it done, Florida State" to "F these kids," and it's like you're holy.
It happens quick, yeah.
You're watching it in real time, and it's the unfortunate part of it. I'm trying to give you updates, but I'm watching. It's like it's the reverse of what happens in Rocky IV in Russia. The crowd like, listen, there's a guy, Rocky. They're cheering for Rocky. Yeah. This is the opposite of that. What's going on right now,
my friends? I want you to know before we go to hour 2 and we bring in my mom and we make the bets. secretly, Tom Lang loves Rocky IV. You guys should know all of it. Listen, you like to think you know us. I want to give you more ammunition. Secretly, Tom loves Rocky IV.
I can tell you that when the demonstration happens for Ivan Drago, when they're saying a normal champion punches at 750 pounds, he hits the thing, the red little box, and it goes 1,850 pounds. Whatever he hits, he destroys.
And by the way, that actor was awesome. The slick back white hair, the whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
He was the personification of the Russian evil. Yes, he was. Yeah.
It's Western propaganda.
Jeff Cameron Show 93.3 Real Talk Radio Warchant TV. I don't know if I just got lucky in regards to this endorsement with Harry's razors, but I was obsessed with razors long before Harry's came along because it made me angry that getting a good shave was proving to be quite costly. And it wasn't always a satisfactory endeavor. Like sometimes you'd get a new razor and it would irritate your neck or something. Like it just wasn't right. Anyhow, so I was trying everything for a long time. But then I switched to Harry's, and I have for some time now. And Harry's says, well, hey, would you like to try Harry's? I already do. But I'm going to tell you something right now. So this is just a regular Harry's razor. This is the new Harry's Plus that I decided when it came out, well, I like Harry's. I might as well try the Harry's Plus. And here's the thing. It's not only affordable, but it's a world-class blade made in Germany. And it's there's no outsourcing, no middleman, just so you know. And it's metal. They're not fooling around. Like, this thing is weighty. If you don't think I'm telling the truth, I just bought these Harry's Plus razors. I bought them. They didn't send them to me. Anyhow, I love Harry's, and I would like for you to give it a try. I think you'll see that I'm right here, gentlemen, that this is the best way to shave. It's they're going to tell you about their most advanced razor and all that stuff. I'm just telling you right now, this razor is fantastic. Both of them are. And I use them both for different things. I shave my head with one and my face with the other. It's perfect. For a limited time, our listeners can get the Harry's Plus trial set for only $10 at harrys.com/warchant. Set includes the all-new Harry's Plus razor, one refined 5-blade cartridge, a 2-ounce foaming shave gel, which I also use, a travel cover to protect your blades on the go. Head to harrys.com/warchant to claim the offer. After you purchase, they'll ask whether or where you heard it from. Please support the Jeff Cameron Show and Warchant. Please support this show and let them know that we sent you. Hour number 2, Libations Friday rolls on. Loosey-goosey edition of the Jeff Cameron Show. I'm Jeff, that's Tom. On Twitter, it's @JCameronShow. Exhale. Hang in there. We'll keep you updated if some good news happens regarding the portal. Obviously, we've had a lot of discussion already about the fact that Miami won. By the way, I didn't ask you, Tom, are you rooting for Indiana or Oregon? Rooting's a strong word. Who are you rooting for tonight?
Indiana. I wouldn't be disappointed if Oregon won. There are times when it's all or nothing in terms of who you're rooting for. I'll be the champion for all of us that hate Miami will be the winner of tonight's game, and we'll have no problem. I'll have no problem rallying behind whoever it is. I'm rooting for Indiana. I love it. They're fun.
Well, they're fun. They play the right way. The story's cool. Oregon plays the right way. The story's, been that they've done everything but win a national title. I will say, if Oregon wins, I'm a Dan Lanning kind of guy.
I know. You might go fly down to Miami, go to Los Tacos just to go watch Dan Lanning hoist his first national championship trophy.
I might, damn it. I might be down there feeling fly on a tequila sunrise wearing an Oregon jersey. I could. I don't know.
Wear the Stormtrooper. That's what you'd wear.
What?
I said you'd wear the Stormtrooper jersey.
I would, because it's the best of the jerseys. Although that old school Oregon with like the yellow and the sleeves. By the way, what Miami wore last night was awesome.
Yeah.
That's what you do.
Well, they changed those recently to have the classic stripes as well. It's a good look.
It's also what the Dolphins should always do. Get away from the sleek and the glamorous, man. Get back to those fat ass orange sleek. Yeah, come on. That's what you do.
And they embrace the right colors. Those are vibrant colors. They've had different shades of orange and green over the years, but it looks like they've landed in a pretty good spot. Yes, we can also, it's another thing. We've got the football program and the operations and the Wi-Fi and lots of things.
And the losing.
The color too,
Hey, buddy, I am not going to bitch about the color of these uniforms until we start winning.
Will. I want that small increment. Can we just work on the dye? Can we work on the dye?
Have you played as FSU yet in the college game?
It's very difficult to. Yes.
They're beautiful. They're beautiful on the game. They look gorgeous. They look great. It's so funny, like your ties to the university, your love for your alma mater, all of it. When you pull up FSU on the college game, I can't do it. I'm just too emotionally attached. I can't do it.
It's hard.
It's true. When you pull them up, you're like, I don't want to sully your reputation. I would need to beat everybody by 80 wearing these uniforms.
Well, I will tell you that when I first got the game, I had a really hard time because I'm a passer. Like I've got balanced offensive attacks, but I need pinpoint passing. And Tommy in the video game rightfully just ain't that guy. It was very difficult to be as Florida State this year. I just had to do dirty things to Florida State, unfortunately.
I did too. Because
Georgia Southern was pulled into the ACC after winning 3 straight national championships.
Well, you chose for them to go to the ACC.
The league chose my fate for me of what power conference, because we have human beings in the league.
Oh, so you're playing. Yeah. See, for me, I'm in a dynasty with Army and I'm kicking ass, but I can choose whether to leave the league, and I refuse to give up on the American.
So we have I was in the Sun Belt and I had won 3 straight natties, and I said, look guys, the year before I thought move me out, but then after winning 3 in a row against all these guys, we've only had 3 seasons, by the way, so I've won.
Wow.
Yeah. I said, you guys pick it. I can keep on beating people 90-0 in the Sun Belt, or we can move me to a different conference.
I would have put you in the Big Ten or the SEC.
Well, there are a lot of the owners of other teams, the coaches, that are in
and they don't want any part of that. Yeah,
they don't want this smoke. And Florida State did not either. Unfortunately, I had to do dirty things in the rain. 72-7 was the final.
Well, Tom, I feel even worse. I beat Florida State 68-0. Army rolled into Doak and shut it down.
It was the 20. I guess this is the 28 season.
Yeah.
Kevin Sperry is an upperclassman, and he had one drive where I was like, well, if you could do that this next year in real life,
wouldn't that be nice?
We're in business, Kevin Sperry.
Yeah, but I did love the way they got it set up, and they've got Osceola and the whole thing, and it sounds great, and it looks beautiful, and you're just like, we have such rich tradition. Why do we suck?
The stadium looks really nice.
They've got it down.
Yeah, when you play in so many of these stadiums, like the inside of it, right? Of course, we all know the outside from living here is just gorgeous, but when you play the game inside there aren't very many college stadiums. Bowl sites look nice, but aren't very many college stadiums that you play and you're like, man, this looks gorgeous. And
yeah, they get it right. They get the shade right. They got everything right. Like the whole, even the new, accoutrements they've got right. Everything.
Yeah, the Cameron Loge section. Yes, that's right. Yeah.
The Cameron Loge section. I thought to myself, I've sat right there. There it is. Yeah, I've watched it.
And when you're going towards where the band used to play, you're playing right towards the Lang Memorial Champions Club. I look up, hey, there it is. It's a living memorial.
See how easy it is that we distract ourselves and how necessary it is right now. We just told the audience for 4 minutes about our game playing.
Well, but our appreciation for the beauty of Florida State, that really was a big part of that discussion.
Yeah, I just so frustrated. I just was curious. I hadn't asked you all week long who you're actually rooting for. Yeah, the Indiana story is awesome. And it's one of the stories that gives you hope, right? I mean, it can happen quick because I talk about us being buried under the fact that we're kind of clueless. But, it's not like Indiana was rolling Big River when Signetti rolled in there. The right guy at the right time with the right vision and the right message can make a big difference. And that's the problem, like, because we're mired under the same talking points and the same guys and the same leadership. And, that's where you do feel a little helpless. And that's another thing we talked about in the offseason as we were building up towards the end of the year, like not making the change made things feel awfully stagnant.
Well, I think one thing that's true that we're looking at here in this day and age, the microwave era, I love that term, the air fryer era of college football, is if you don't have unlimited resources at the start, the way you start matters greatly. The snowball effect is real either way.
Yeah.
It's contagious, and it can bend you over a barrel like it has for us over the last couple of years. Mike's start wasn't great, but we weren't quite in the portal and the NIL and transfer portal era quite yet. So he was able to use that as a novel tool in order to get himself and extricate himself from the problems of the first couple of years. But then from the snub, it's just the snowball effect has been insane. And now it's affecting the reputation of the program to a place that you can't get out of your own way. For Indiana, it's the opposite. Now people are handing over money like it's the end of Field of Dreams. They won't even know why, right? Because they want to believe in what Cignetti's doing, and they're getting every reason to believe in what Cignetti's doing, because it's not just about the JMU players he brought with him. He's able to do it a second time. So now the snowball effect works in your favor. And it just, if you're not one of those traditional powers or one of the new powers like a Texas Tech, I think it really, really matters that for the first year or two, you have to have real success, because it can spiral in a good way just as quickly as it can spiral in a bad way.
Yeah, and it's always kind of mattered. It matters more now. I agree with you, but it's always kind of mattered.
I just feel like, you could get off to a middling start, be a program builder in year 3 or year 4. You're still right on track as a new head coach. Now, you get into year 3, you haven't had any success, like you're dead.
The curse for Mike Norvell is the fact that he's had to do it again. He already did it. We did the heavy lifting around these parts. You did that. It's the part that I lament and feel bad about. I mean, for him in that sense, like, brother, you had it.
Well, and there was justice there for a moment, because a once in a lifetime thing inhibited his ability.
Right. COVID. Yes. A global pandemic screwed him. Yes.
And then a once in a lifetime thing in the transfer portal, allowed him, and collectives allowed him to jump right out of it. And then you could say once in a generation or once every 2 generation political snub. There you go. So, I mean, he did get himself out of it. But here's the thing. We hadn't built up the depth, and you know this because you were harping on it. We hadn't built up the depth even when we had won 19 in a row.
Yeah.
Let's say that we parlayed that into success in the playoff. They let us in and we won a playoff game. And so our reputation is good. You still would have had to hit the portal and hammer the portal hard to be anywhere close in 2024.
Well, that was the concern for all involved. Are you once a portal team, always a portal team? Do you have to constantly, because Miami is a portal team, as is every team in college football, but is your rooted base around the lines of scrimmage that you recruit from high school? And yes, their answer is yes. Chef Cameron Show, 93.3 Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV. Mama joins us next. Let's get to some picking. Libations Friday means Mama joins us, and we have the conversation centered around the NFL and the pool and our bets against one another. Actually, she basically staved off elimination last week, did Mama, by taking both games that we had different. Now, it's interesting because in our other pool, the one that's the family pool, which I won, this year's already over. It's already done. They paid me my money for having won the pool. I actually did the right thing in that pool in the way that I should have with Mom here. I took Seattle against San Francisco in that one. I didn't head-to-head with her this past week. So Mom wins both games. She got the Bucks right, and she got Seattle right, and it's down from 7 to 5. And with that, if you would, cue it up, Tom.
And now for another edition of the Family Pick. Nick.
Go to your room! Ma, the meatloaf!
Take it away, Jeffrey.
All right, Mom, so you're within 5, and I say congrats on that. It's funny. I I blew it last week. I should have picked as you did. The Bucks found a way to hold on, win a game. Didn't end up mattering.
No, it didn't. I tell you, what a frustrating year.
Yeah, it's a very frustrating year. But here we sit now with more games on the horizon. You do have a chance. You're right in it. If you can get some right here, I don't know. We haven't talked about it ahead of time, what we agree on and what we don't. So we're going to be fair-minded about this. Let's pick the games. Sunday. Well, actually, we should start with the Saturday games. Excuse me. Rams at Panthers. I got a feeling we're both picking the Rams.
I'm picking the Rams.
That's a pretty easy one, is it not?
I think it is. That might be the easiest one. But as soon as I say that, you know what happened. But I don't think so in this case.
How about the Packers and the Bears? 8 o'clock, prime time, Soldier Field, going to be freezing cold. Good matchup.
That's a good. I'm taking the Bears.
You and me both. Sunday, the Bills are at the Jaguars in a game that I find to be the most intriguing.
I know. I agree with you. Lee, who's at the Jaguars? Tell me that again. What'd you just say?
The Bills, mother. The Bills are at the Jags.
Okay, the Bills and the Jags. You know, I'm really torn by this game. Jacksonville is really playing well. But I'm going to take Buffalo.
I thought you might. And I wrestled back and forth with the game. By the way, just for those wondering at home, the Buffalo Bills are favored to win the game. The reason it's a slight favorite on the road.
Yeah.
The reason for that is quite clearly the cachet of who they are, but also it's Josh Allen. I mean, that's why. I'm taking the Jaguars.
Yep. I don't think that I think that's a really good pick. If I had nerve, I would take Jacksonville, but I really like Josh Allen and I really like Buffalo and I really would like them to do well. So I'm just going to try to spur them on.
This is another great game. San Francisco 49ers, against all odds with the myriad injuries that they had, ended up having a great season going 12-5. Of course, we beat the 49ers, but that doesn't matter. Nonetheless, they are on the road against the defending Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. What say you?
Yeah, what say me? That just shows you what a good coach will do. Man, I would really like to pick the 49ers.
But you can't do it, can you?
I can't. I gotta stick with Philadelphia. It may come back to bite me, but I just feel like, I don't know. And they're not, if they were playing in San Fran, I think I would pick San Fran. But anyway, I'm taking Philly.
I think it's a bad matchup for San Francisco is the problem. I like in a different other matchups for the 49ers in these playoffs, I'd pick them. But I don't like the matchup for them here. I'm taking the Eagles as well. And I hate the Eagles. And I wish I didn't have to take the Eagles. But I don't see a way not to take the Eagles at this point. Chargers at Patriots, another great game.
That is a great game. You know what? I'm taking the Patriots.
Yeah, I kind of have a weird feeling that speaking of injuries and what a good coach can do, I kind of think that the Chargers are going to get blown out. I feel like they overachieved, that they found a way to go 11-6 because they are well coached. Stylistically, they play a game that limits possessions. I think the Patriots are going to house the Chargers. We're in agreement there. Yeah. The Texans are at the Steelers. Now, this we might disagree on. I think this is another very good football game.
I do too. It's like Aaron Rodgers' last chance to keep on going. And I don't like him either. I don't want him to keep going on. And I don't know, that Houston team, that Texan team is really surprising. I'm going to take the Texans.
I'm also taking the Texans. Yeah. I'm also taking the Texans because their defense has been awesome all year long. It's funny. I wouldn't be surprised, obviously, if it went the other way. Pittsburgh at night, home game, Aaron Rodgers, they get DK Metcalf back, all those things. But I do think the Texans will make them one-dimensional. And once that happens, it can be a long day at the office for Aaron Rodgers. We'll see. He doesn't have the mobility he once did. I think they're going to get after him. So I'm with you on this. I tend to side with the defense in that situation.
Yeah, I know it. It is a hard pick, but anyway, that's who I'll pick it.
Well, unfortunately for you, Mom, we have way too much agreement. We've got one game different here, and you're 5 back. So you can chip away again if you get it. And by the way, you took the favorite in that game. So if you win it, it's down to 4, and we've got many playoff games left. So you can hang in there.
We'll see what happens. It's going to be exciting. And now tonight, doesn't the college thing start tonight?
Yes. The college football is on tonight, indeed.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, lots of good football. Do you listen before we hang up? What do you think the Bucks are going to stick with Bowles one more year?
I think they've pretty much already said it. Yes.
Oh, I'm so sick about it. I just kept thinking maybe we'd have breaking news and they would have changed their mind.
We agree. I wish they would have. They're not going to. They just fired their offensive coordinator today. I would not have fired their offensive coordinator because that's not the problem, but they did.
Well, that's one of the problems. And they also need to get a defensive coordinator because Bowles clearly can't do it.
Yeah, the problem was their defense. All year long, it was their defense. So, there you go. All right, love you, Mama. Gotta go.
Love you too. Everybody have a great weekend. Happy New Year to everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, so maybe one game, just the one game difference. But if she gets it to 4, and these are, it's close. It's close with all these. And she has the favorite. We'll see. Something about that Jacksonville team kind of excites me. They have played great. I'll tell you what it is. It's the guy that should be the head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, that's the game of the weekend, though. And usually the game of the weekend is stuffed in a primetime window. The Sunday night is typically that game. You get that early on Sunday.
You get it 1 o'clock.
You wake up, you're ready to go. Buffalo, Jacksonville, let's do this thing. And I think the sexiest matchup for brands obviously happens on Saturday night on streaming, so they can nickel and dime you in the NFL for a playoff game. That's a fun game. It's a great uniform game. It's a great tradition game. They don't often meet in the playoffs, even though they've been rivals forever and a day. Like, that's got cool factor, but the best game is Buffalo-Jacksonville. That's got a chance to be 34-31.
That's got a chance to be very high scoring. I completely agree with you. I look forward to that. I will say Bears-Packers is fun from a nostalgia standpoint like you're talking about. And by the way, don't muck up the uniforms. Just wear what the hell you wear. None of this nonsense, Green Bay. Green Bay's forever throwing on some 1907 nonsense that nobody cares about with their Bumblebee nonsense. Again, stop it. Wear your uniform.
Or the white helmet. Yeah.
Yeah, stop. Wear your GD uniform. You're the Green Bay Packers. Stop effing with it. Of all people, you don't need to be throwing throwbacks. Chef Cameron Show 93.3 Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV. Just so you guys know, if we ever do get our act together, I could make a very strong argument that we are in the right conference. This is where we want to be for the foreseeable future, so long as you stop sucking in this conference. If you can find a way ever to make it to the college football playoff out of the ACC, you clearly don't even have to win the conference in order to do that. You just got to get there, boys. The college football playoff, and I quote, offers more than $100 million to FBS conferences in prize payouts based on how their teams fare in the postseason. But because the money is sent to conferences, the conferences distribute the money to schools. And each of the conferences have different policies for how they do so. And this is why I say you want to be in the ACC if you're good enough to make a playoff. Among the power conferences, the ACC is the only conference that distributes 100% of the prize payout to the school that earned it. Schools in the Big 10 and the Big 12 have to share the distributions earned equally. You don't if you're in the ACC. Front Office Sports confirmed that in a story they wrote yesterday. The SEC has a hybrid model. So the CFP distributions work like this. The CFP distributes $4 million for each school that earned a bid. So just getting to the playoff means that the CFP will give you $4 million. Another $4 million for participating in a quarterfinal. Top 4 ranked conference champions were each guaranteed $8 million, regardless if they won their first round game or not. So they got $8 million if they were one of the elite teams in college football and got that bye. The College Football Playoff Committee distributes $6 million for every school that makes the semifinal, and every team that makes the national championship gets another $6 million. In addition, schools will get $3 million for each game they participate in to cover all travel expenses. So as of 2024-2025, the ACC offers all prize payouts, all travel expenses to the school that earns it, which means, obviously, Miami has done well for themselves, has made above $10 million. So, God dog it, you are greatly incentivized, and it would help. It would help in roster construction. Year over year begets the opportunity to do even more because of all of the bonuses you're going to get for just being there, just getting there. That's a quarterback and a starting defensive end, bare minimum.
Oh, absolutely. And you might say, well, they can't increase their rev share cap. No, but you can move things around, and you could say, hey, you know what? That corporate sponsorship that we have on the billboard, that check can be diverted to perhaps the agency that represents this player instead of to our.
Yes.
You can make these things really benefit you beyond putting up a nice plaque and maybe another section of a training facility.
If you're not solely interested in just hoarding all of the profits for yourself and actually decide to reinvest, you can do exactly that.
Yeah, you can make things work. Well, this is part of the power play that Florida State led the way for within the ACC, was to help offset the difference between
the TV revenue for the SEC
and us. Yeah, and you need to make it up by nickel and diming little things like this, incentive plans. But Miami benefits from Florida State's labor in that regard, and it's frustrating. But, you could do better than being dead-ass last the last 2 years in this conference. So let's shoot for that this year, to maybe have a 3-year aggregate where we are not the worst team wins and losses wise in terms of conference record in the ACC. That would be a start.
By the way, you got me thinking about conferences. A few days ago, Bruce Feldman wrote a piece for The Athletic. Did you read it about the SEC's dismal bowl run? And the record this season points to a fundamental truth, and that's the title, that money matters. Did you read that piece?
I did not, but I'm aware that their bowl record is ass. And
yeah. And it's, this is an interesting thing, because I would point out that I don't really care whether or not you win non-playoff games, because those are really bizarre. They're difficult to kind of discern who cared to be there. But I will say, now, when it's convenient, the SEC will tell you just a year ago, when they went 8-2 in those bowl games, that it was further proof of their dominance.
Right, and the depth of their rosters and all that kind of stuff, right? That's what they would lean into. Well, they have so many more good players that even when their starters don't play, they just wax your ass. Yeah.
Right. So it has been a abysmal postseason, 2-7 in college football playoff/bowls when not facing each other. And again, when the league was 8-2, you heard that ballyhooed at 2-7. For those that did the ballyhooing, you have to be able to, once again, handle that statistic that you utilized just a year ago. But what I found more interesting wasn't that. It was that Feldman, who is connected and does a good job of covering college football, spoke with a lot of coaches off the record that weren't shocked and he got quotes before and after the game between Indiana and Alabama. The Hoosiers were almost a double-digit favorite, so that was supposed to happen. But the way the game unfolded was eye-opening, and we've talked about that. The fact that they won 38-3 is stunning. And then they outrushed Alabama, and this was the thing that I kept bringing up and kept talking about. Like, we can talk all we want about Mendoza, who's a fine quarterback, but he threw 16 passes. They beat Alabama by completing 14 passes. It was hardly an aerial assault. What he didn't do was he didn't turn the ball over, and he played smart and was willing to take whatever was there. He'd also run around a little bit. The more telling statistic as it relates to Alabama's decline and a bit of the SEC's was the fact that they outrushed Alabama 215 yards to 23. That will hurt your feelings. That is devastating. To be bullied to the extent that they were bullied by Indiana, to have Indiana's center and the rest of that offensive line win the MVP, to know by configuration, formation, situational, time, score, distance, that they were going to run the ball on this next play, that this was coming straight at you with that back who I just gave it to a moment ago on 1st and 10, which is now 2nd and 2. I'm going to give it to him again. Guess what I'm going to do on 1st down when we get the 2 yards that we need here? I'm going to give it to him again. And let me tell you what you're not going to do. A damn thing. You're going to not do a damn thing about it. We are going to treat you in a manner that I once described for our own football team, unfortunately, this year. Being on the wrong end of a manhandling is emasculating, to say the least. In certain circles, if we were on the golf course, that discussion would be much more animated. It is something to behold to watch a team line up and tell you in no uncertain terms what's what. That's tough. That's tough.
And if only there was a data point that could have predicted that Alabama would not be successful running the ball when they had it. Perhaps the SEC championship, in which they rushed for -3 yards for the entire game against Georgia, might let you know that in the trenches, they got real friggin' problems. And it's more than just Jam Miller's health.
So a Power 4 offensive coordinator, when talking about that game before it was played, look, that ain't Alabama's defense, said a Power 4 offensive coordinator who used one of the most damning words a coach can evoke about another football team. They're just soft. Quote, ultimately, and this is y'all's job, not my job, but there needs to be an evaluation of this narrative regarding the SEC. Those aren't bad MFers because they're getting their ass whipped in these games, and we're seeing that. Feldman goes on to write, is that true? Yes. Featured 2 Big Ten teams, Indiana, Oregon, 1 ACC team, Miami, and 1 SEC team, Ole Miss. More broadly across bowl games, the It Just Means More conference is at the bottom of the Power 4 leagues in records, trailing the Big Ten, the ACC, the Big 12. In bowl games through that past weekend when the article was written, the SEC was 2-7 against those other conferences. The SEC team was favored in 7 of the 9 games. 5 years ago, when Alabama blew out Ohio State 52-24 in the national title game, the SEC went 7-2. The Big Ten went 3-2. The ACC was 0-6. The Big 12 was 5-0. The year before, when LSU beat Clemson to win the title, the SEC was 8-2. The Big Ten was 4-5. The Big 12 was 1-5, and the ACC was 3-7. Noting the trend is alarming for many in the SEC. Yes, the blood is in the water. I wanted to follow up. There's a lot more to that article, far more quotes, many more references to various games and outcomes and matchups. But I wanted to feed the sharks. I wanted to give you a little and point to an article that is fun. There is a little bit to it right now, and it's a fun conversation to have because the money that we keep talking about and the dispersion of it and who has it is really the reason. The money being spent by other programs around the country, not in the SEC, are allowing for all of this. 100%. And you can't hoard talent. That's the other thing. You cannot hoard talent. That your backup at Georgia and at Alabama and at LSU and at many schools in that league for a very long time. And this is where it was painfully obvious anytime we saw these preseason matchups, these early season matchups, I'm thinking like Alabama, Louisville, and games like that. You would watch it and you'd go, man, and then in many ways we did it in our unfortunate set of circumstances against Georgia in the bowl game, in the Orange Bowl. We would watch those backups, Tom. How many times would we come on the air and go, well, there's the difference. I mean, their backups are every bit our starters. Yeah, that is increasingly becoming less so. Because those players can start and want to start, and their 5-star ass goes to a place and isn't going to sit for 2 years. They're going to go play somewhere because they're going to get paid to do so.
Yeah, agreed. We also knew that even in the moment, we were able to talk about this openly, that Florida State, the year that we went 13-0, was 25 players deep. Like we knew that it was the starting group was for real because of the heavy lifting of the retention that was done. And so we were a bit of a different animal even in that moment. But we knew that of our starters, even without Jordan Travis at quarterback, they were good enough to compete. They belonged on the same field when Fisk and Verse and that offensive line, like all those guys were together, and Keon, and like unfortunately there were some health issues. But when all those guys were together on the field, that team could compete. But you knew that if anybody was hurt in a given week, as we went week to week with injury reports, like, man, that's a big drop-off if they lose this guy or if they lose that guy. It wasn't on the level of 2013 where, if you lost one player, it would destroy everything. But if Tatum Bethune wasn't available in a given week, you felt it. That was the problem that year.
Yeah, because if you're looking around, Renardo Green, amongst many others in that secondary, are all playing in the National Football League. Obviously, Verse and Fisk made an instant splash. Obviously, Tatum Bethune had to, because of injury with San Francisco, emerge as their starting middle linebacker and did. You can go around the league. There's just a lot of FSU players littered throughout the league right now that were on that defense. Now, at the end of the year, we also knew that they were going to have to win because of that defense. That's what they were going to have to do. Their offense was pure ass at the end of that year.
Correct. The one thing I would say is a lot of hypotheses are wrong, but I think this one's right. In the wake of Nick Saban retiring, it is more evident than ever that a guy who's fallible, who's imperfect, like a Lane Kiffin or a Mario Cristobal, Brian Kelly was thought to be on that level. Like those guys are going to nobody else is going to take the mantle. You don't have an heir apparent. Maybe it's Siggs. Maybe you have Siggs here. But even
it appears to be Siggs. Yeah.
Kirby Smart's fallen off a little bit. Like if you look at the formation of college football, and I understand the transfer portal has affected this to some degree in terms of depth, but for this season, you would say that the 2022, 23, and 24 recruiting classes would build up the rosters that we're evaluating right now. In 22, I'm going through the top 10 very, very quickly. 6 SEC teams in the top 10 in the recruiting rankings, including the top 5 spots. In 2023, Alabama, Georgia, Texas, LSU, Oklahoma, all in the top 6. In 2024, Georgia, Alabama. Then there's a bit of a drop-off. Texas, LSU, Auburn, Oklahoma, Florida round out the top 10. Like the SEC is still winning in recruiting battles, but I think the fact that you don't have a panoply of excellent top-tier coaches that's on a different plane allows for this in terms of coaching and development to become a very fair fight. The portal helps, of course, and revenue share, of course. All these things contribute to each other. But while the SEC might still have, and they certainly do, in terms of NFL prospect value,
it's still a
talent disparity. They're the best. They are the best. There's a lot of Lane Kiffins and Mario Cristobal's out there. There's more of those than there are elite coaches. And so therefore, in a given week, you got opportunities that you simply just did not have for a big stretch of time.
Yeah, in many ways, it is once again highlighting how great Nick Saban was. Now, again, I don't like it when our fan base become hypocrites. They're like, well, sure, Alabama had all the best players. Hey, look, man, did you watch football in the 90s? Florida State had all the best players. You don't do that. We discredit Bobby Bowden's greatness. Florida State had all the best players. The best players.
Sure. The one thing I would say, though, is the ACC didn't ride the coattails in terms of reputation.
No, you're talking about what fans do. I agree with that. It's annoying what fans do. Look, ESPN is going to promote their investment. I get what the hell's going on there. They're going to talk. Listen, the ESPN spends 8 hours every afternoon talking about the NBA's regular season. Ain't nobody watching. Why do you think they do that? They do that because they spend bazillion dollars on the NBA. They're doing the same thing with the SEC. Fine. Don't get caught up in all that.
But here's the difference, though. Okay, they're doing that, and that's annoying, sure. But clearly, this discussion has an impact on the committee, which does help choose the champion. So much so that an Iron Bowl victory over a garbage-ass Auburn team is enough to elevate you as Alabama and insulate you from what should have been a reasonable discussion about 2 places for 3 teams. Instead, it was Miami pitted against Notre Dame instead of Alabama being in that discussion, which they should have been in that discussion the whole time.
Yeah, yes, and ultimately, and look, I agree with that. I also think that we have got to get to a place, but we never will, where these preseason rankings shouldn't have such an influence on the committee and everybody else. This is what happens. If you look at the initial AP poll and then monitor from that point forward, week to week, the moment that the CFP unveils their rankings, what you'll find is it typically mirrors the AP rankings early on, and then that speaks to and creates the narrative, Tom, moving forward about who's in and who's out, like the juxtaposition of shuffling the deck every week. That's how a Missouri or a Tennessee can just continually be ranked every week, so that the games, when played against each other, serves as the straw that stirs the drink, where you then say, to justify it, well, that was a game on the road against a ranked team. Whereas if you lose on the road to Washington in a given week or somebody like that, they're unranked. So you're able to say, well, I mean, that loss against unranked so-and-so doesn't hold up. And that's how you're able to do that. I agree. That's where perception comes into play. And the reason I say you can't get rid of it is because even if tomorrow the AP and the coaches polls went away, right? If they all went away, the very first thing Fox and ESPN would do was release an effing poll a month before the season, because they've got to sell the matchups early in the year. They're telling you, oh, this is number 10 versus number 7 because it's sexy. They're going to continue to do that whether the AP exists or doesn't.
Yeah, I agree. It is reflexive. It's an echo chamber, and it's rigged in terms of the discussion because the network is going to lean towards whatever product they have. Like that all makes sense to me. Somewhere along the way, it becomes fact in college football conversations because they keep hammering these. Propaganda is too strong a word. This isn't that serious, but they hammer these talking points over and over and over again, like to the point where the Alabama talking point. I mean, more evidence has come to light since November. Like, well, how could they possibly lose to Florida State? I don't know. Maybe looking at their performances on the ground, specifically against Auburn, against Georgia, they ran for 20 yards against Oklahoma. That was a situational game that they won against an okay Auburn team, and then getting smoked by Indiana. Maybe it's not that hard to explain how Florida State was able to rise up and beat them in that moment. Like it's actually more believable with the last 3 to 4 games that Alabama played. Whereas in the middle of the season, because they beat other SEC teams, magically it's all better. Like that's the hard part I have is these discussions get co-opted.
We're always seeking to have somewhat of a balanced discussion when we're talking big picture about any conference or any program. And that's where, because I understand the vitriol and the anger that so many in our fan base have towards the SEC and ESPN, I always do have to push back with, well, yeah, for a long time, the reason that people said that was because it was true. Like the league was infinitely better for a very long time. Now, there's also, because I'm old enough to remember it, decades worth of the SEC didn't dominate college football. You got to know all of it. You got to be able to talk about what was happening in the 80s in the SEC, in the early 90s in the SEC, as well as what happened during that really glorious run of about 15 years in the 2000s, where it was far and away the best league, and it wasn't even a discussion. You have to be able to do both for that to be a fair conversation. So many on both sides don't. Like the SEC fans don't do it, and the ACC, well, I won't say there are ACC fans, but Florida State fans won't do it either.
Yeah, no, well, that's the polarization of where we are in terms of everything's all or nothing. You're with us or you're against us, and in everything we do in life. But I just, in this example, you're seeing it affect the way that championships are determined. It wasn't just
of course.
snub. You're seeing it affect the way that seedings are handed out, and that's where it gets annoying.
And, the integrity has been called into question, and for good reason. And it started with Florida State getting bent over.
Yeah.
Absolutely it did. Hell, actually, you can argue it started before that, because you could watch TCU get waxed in a Big 12 championship game and still make it to the playoff.
Well, and if you're an Auburn fan listening to this show, you think about the year that you got left out, and you think that was unduly, that you didn't get to be in the BCS championship game, whatever year that was, like 06, 07. Like, there are tales over time about
football's always been a mess that way.
There are selections that are made, and unfortunately, I think it's just become more transparent in the last few years about how political those choices are, as political as they've been since the Bowl Alliance, right? At that point,
I'm just not a huge fan of the committee for a lot of reasons, and I think you can have a more empirical way of doing this, and they choose not to. And we'll see.
Well, and because they control the network that they're conducting this discussion on, Alabama is just the flavor in this moment. I'm not trying to pick on specifically Alabama, but they are the lightning rod in this discussion.
Well, yes, they've been the benefactor.
Right. We were talking about it in the moment. Alabama rules are different. They're just different right now. They're treated different.
The same thing for Notre Dame.
Yeah. But not in this case, though. This year
this was one of those cases where they had no chance. They lost the game. This was one of those times where the committee did everything they possibly could to try to help Notre Dame get in. They ignored the leading talking point in the debate for 12 weeks. They would not talk about it. They would act as if it wasn't worthy of discussion. And people would go, well, now, wait a minute. They have the exact same record. They have had the same record now for 6 weeks. One team played the other and beat them. What do you mean we can't talk about it? Well, we don't even have them on the same plane.
But now you know the definition where we stand in this moment in college football history, that they care more about the SEC and Alabama than they do Notre Dame, because they could have put Alabama in that discussion, in that pod with Miami and Notre Dame.
No, they moved them up to protect them.
Exactly. So that tells you that while Notre Dame still gets unbelievable treatment, and now
they changed the effing rules right afterwards.
Alabama still gets better treatment than Notre Dame.
Yeah. In this case, that is certainly true. And I think in general, because ESPN is obviously carrying the day.
And 2 years ago, it certainly did in our case.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
They had to use Texas to carry Alabama into the equation.
Yeah. Nobody's going to lose sleep over Notre Dame getting slided there, though, especially when they lost a head-to-head. You got to go. You got to go.
Agreed. Yeah. That feeling we have in our stomach when ESPN gets going about the SEC just takes actual form when you get to Selection Sunday. That's the problem, is it's affecting things for real.
Yeah, I think and there are a lot of things that weigh into that factor into that. Again, the preseason polls are not helpful. They're not. I mean, you think about 2 top 10 teams right off the bat, Clemson and Penn State. They both went 7-6, and they played each other in a bowl game. Jeff Cameron, 93.3 Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV.